Hey, welcome back to Living Well Seminars. We're so thrilled that you're here with us. Again, we recognize there's a lot going on in our world right now, a lot in our communities, our church, and so we just want to offer a resource for anyone that might be struggling with some different issues. And so we're bringing in some really great people, some experts, some people who are really knowledgeable about the area that we're asking them to deal with, because we know that some of us are dealing with these same kind of issues. And so we're really thrilled that we have Dr. Roy Lawson, and he's our senior associate minister, and so we're thrilled that he's a part of our team. And we're thrilled not because he's just an associate minister, but he's been around for a while. So you've seen a lot, and so thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing with us today.
I was waiting for you to tell them that the real reason you asked me here today is because I'm old.
Well, I was trying to be nice and diplomatic.
Yeah, you were very diplomatic, unusually so, but that's why I'm here, is because I'm old.
And because you're older, let me put it that way, can you tell me some of the things that you actually like about being older?
Yeah, I surprised some of my friends on this. I like being old, to be honest. I talk a lot about it, and it's part because this is my favorite stage of life, except for the body. You know, I have to be honest about my body doesn't like me, and some days I don't like it. But I like lots of things about being older that I like. I like the long perspective. I know where to put things in relation to other things at this point.
Right.
I like the long memories. You know, my memory goes back over, well, into the 70 years anyway. And boy, I've got some wonderful memories I don't want to let go of. And so I have that little bit of a fear, you know.
Right.
But I like that. I like having had friends, dear friends for decades, but still being able to make new friends.
Right.
Which is one of the joys of the church. I guess one other thing I'd say is I like my faith at this stage. I don't have the answers to all the questions, but I've discovered that some of the questions don't matter that much. And the questions that really matter, I think I have found the answers to, and I'm content with that. So all of those are pluses as far as I'm concerned.
Now, besides your body, is there any don'ts or some things that you don't like about being older?
Well, yes. I just talked about my friends. I love hanging out with my friends, but my friends are pretty positive people. One of the things I don't like about old age is that a lot of people don't like old age, and so they grumble. And they find all kinds of things to complain about. And I think it's really, well, there are lots of reasons for that. Well, one reason for that is they're backing into the future. They've got their eyes firmly fixed on how things used to be when things were right.
Right.
They've forgotten that they weren't right then. And so they're backing into tomorrow. They're not a lot of fun to be with. And they are they're a challenge. As a woman who used to work for me said years ago, when she and Joy, my wife Joy, were kind of on my case, she said, "Now Roy, Joy and I are just trying to help you develop your Christ-like qualities." Well, I've got several people in my life who do that. So that's one thing I don't like. I don't like the rigidity of old thinking. The truth is, this world has never been perfect. There really was not a golden age.
Right.
So those folks make me a little uncomfortable. I guess I'll say one other thing. I'm afraid of people who have stopped thinking. They get what they think is their thinking off of the TV.
Oh.
And usually, and I think most of us do this, but they will watch only what they already agree with.
Right.
And that reinforces their prejudices. And so
there's no critical thinking.
The critical thinking is gone. But you know, I also have another thought about that. I'm pretty much persuaded that as we grow older, we don't change. We just grow more the same.
Oh, okay.
And those who don't think critically in old age probably were not thinking critically all along. And they just kind of got in the habit of letting other people do the thinking for them. And they would say, yeah, that's it.
Right.
So.
Well, because you're older and you've been around, you've seen some things throughout the years. Like I think we mentioned that you saw probably 9/11,
Oh.
we saw Desert Storm, Vietnam, World War II, assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
You cut that out. But I will tell you, when the Great Recession hit in 2008,
Right.
even back then, I was saying, well, I was born in the Great Depression, and it looks like I'm going to go out in another one. Well, we survived that one.
Right.
Now I'm dragging out that old line again because we don't know where we're going now. But I think I mentioned this to our staff. I finally figured out what I'm good for here. And what I'm good for is I can say to them, look, I've survived. I spoke for a group of senior citizens in Tennessee last year. It's the first time I really used that line, first time I thought about it. But there was probably about 1,000 people there, and I stood and I looked at the crowd, lots of white hair and lots of no hair.
No hair, yes.
Yeah. But I looked at them and it hit me then. I'm talking to the survivors.
Oh.
Any complaint I would have, they would have. Any trials I'd been through, they've been through. And they've come through it, they've survived. And I think maybe one of the advantages of a multi-generational church, which ours is,
Right.
is we do have older people around who just by being around can say, see, we made it, you can make it.
So that perspective is it's really
That perspective, again, it's wonderful. And all those things you listed, yeah, we've been through all of that and more that you didn't talk about.
Sure. So what advice would you give to seniors that are in this COVID-19, this pandemic that's affected everyone, but especially for a senior's perspective, what would you say would be some good advice you would give them? Or how do you think seniors in general are handling that, and why are some handling it better than others?
Well, that's a great question. Maybe the very first thing I would say to seniors is don't watch so much TV. Because the negativism of TV feeds our own natural negativism. And spending all day watching TV does terrible things for the bottom, which
Right.
spreads, and the muscles, which flabby up. So cut down. I'm not saying don't do TV at all.
Sure.
But cut down on it. And I want to talk out the other side of my mouth and say that many seniors are afraid of media, like they wouldn't know how to. Oh, you guys. The young people on our staff asked me to do 2 or 3 videos explaining to other people in my generation, you may have put them up this, I don't know, explaining to them how to use the media, how to use a smart TV or an iPhone or whatever. So I made three videos, and the truth is I watched them later, and I don't know how anybody following me would know what to do. I'm not all that at ease with today's media. I just think it's imperative for us old people not to reject it.
Right.
Because that's the world we live in. If we just say I'm not going to do that, we cut off an awful lot of life.
Right.
And now as we look to the future, more and more life is going to be online on the screen. So I would say that to them. I would say another thing that I just hinted at. You can't hang out personally with your friends now, but do your best to hang out with positive people online, on the phone. Mm-hmm. Be one of those positive people. I caught on to something several years ago about myself. I was grumbling, as usual, and it dawned on me, I'm the only person who hears everything I say.
So elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, what I'm saying is if I'm spewing negative stuff, if I'm grumbling, if I'm cursing, whatever it is I'm doing, I'm in a sense I'm talking in a bubble or in a loop.
Sure.
And what goes out comes back in, and so I'm constantly reinforcing my negativity, or my fear, or my anger, or whatever it is. So I would suggest that we older people, we need not only to hang out with positive people, we need to be the positive person that other people hang out with. For the sake of our own mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health.
Right. Speaking about spiritual health, I mean, how are you praying these days, or would you, again, counsel, maybe not just even seniors, but in general, us to pray, but maybe specifically a little bit on seniors? What would we be praying for?
Well, what I want to say is not original with me. The Apostle Paul, in a couple of these letters, urges us to give thanks in everything. Now, when I was young, I kind of discounted that because I have been through some tough times. And I guess I would naturally respond, everything, Paul, everything? Well, the older I've grown, the more I think he hit it on the nail. Because a thankful heart is a life stance. Mm. If you live with gratitude, it affects everything about you. And so I was asked it's been a few years ago now, Roy, how do you pray? And I had to confess, mostly I give thanks. Hmm. And so I would, in answer to your question, I would start there. Be thankful. And now you go on from that, because we do have petitions. You certainly want to go to the Lord with your concern about your family, your friends, your church. But then, it's interesting. Once you get started with that, you go on and on and on and on. I've said here a couple of times, I have dear friends in India and in Kenya, and all this emphasis on social distancing, they can't do it.
Right.
And we're told stay at home. They don't have homes to stay in. They have hovels with no windows, no doors. What are they going to do? And so I start kind of selfishly praying for my nearest and dearest, but I end about there. Right. And the good thing about praying like that is I don't know that we're able to pray seriously like that without putting feet to our prayers and hands to our prayers and doing what we can to help the Lord answer the prayer.
Well, that's a great segue, because my next question will be is, how would seniors handle this pandemic, and not just sitting around, but how can they help actually serve? Because you're 81?
Next week, 82.
Yeah, so you're not retired. You're still...
Well, no, I already tried that.
Yes, a couple times. And so you're still serving, and we see the impact that you're having, and you believe that we're all to serve. So how would you counsel some seniors in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic, where we have this shelter in place? How can they serve?
Well, but first, can I say thank you to you? And I really am answering the question in time. But I've told everybody, you took a gamble on this old guy, bringing somebody who's at death's door, some people think, and put him on staff. What you've just done for me is extend my life. Mm. And not only the years of my life, who knows how many I have, but the joy of my life. So I would say to other seniors who maybe don't have a David Case in their life, who will say, come on, you need to go to work, then find work. That is, find something within the constraints that we have that you can do. I took a challenge that you gave our whole church. You encouraged us to be reaching out, to calling, to writing. I've done that. I've made up a list, and now my problem is I've lived all over the United States, right, and my list is very long. But I've already started writing to these people, and I'm getting long answers back. Mm. And so that would, I guess I'm saying, do what I've done in that regard, with a phone call, a text message, an old-fashioned letter.
Yeah.
With a stamp on the envelope even. The worst thing we do in old age is to sit and feel so sorry for us, mm-hmm, because the world has passed us by. Well, the only way you can keep the world from passing by is to jump on. And that means reaching out. Now, what I've seen here, and I'm just so proud of our people here, I can't stand it. I've seen younger people and older people taking these little bags, mm-hmm, making phone calls, making certain that everybody's okay. Right. Your wife did a wonderful thing for me, and I'll brag about it till I die. But Joy and I, we're in the vulnerable stage. We have to stay home. I came into the office, I think it was last week, and Angie at the reception desk yelled at me to go home. So I went home. But your wife called. We're going to the grocery store. Is there anything we could get for you? That spoke volumes to us. Well, that's something older people can do. I mean, if you can't go to the grocery store, you can call and make sure that the people you know, maybe even people you don't know, are okay. And if you're forbidden, call somebody who's younger and can go. I would just say reach out in every way you can. If you've got kids and grandkids, don't wait for them to call you. Mm-hmm. You call them and assure them that you're all right and that you're praying for them.
And what's really great, it comes full circle, is that you can give them perspective as well. And that's the beauty of
it is
not just letting the world react, but you taking charge in the world.
You gave me a wonderful assignment, David, to do these videos on the book of Philippians. He thinks he's really clever. Discover Joy with Roy. You had to giggle when you came up with that. Anyway, it's one of the best assignments I've ever been given, because I've now spent 4 chapters on the subject of joy, and what I've done, I've read it more seriously, more closely than I've ever read it in my life, and I'm discovering that that book by itself is full of ideas on how you can have joy in your life, how you can discover joy. Bottom line, though, is it's all about turning your eyes, your perspective out to others,
right,
and not asking who's doing what for me, but what can I be doing for them?
Yeah. Well, not only has this extended maybe your life and your joy, but it's certainly extended my joy and our church's joy in our life as well, because you're a part of us. And that's what's really great, is that we are that multi-generational church, and you've been a valuable asset, and so we're so thankful that you're here.
I was fishing for a compliment.
Yeah, I know you were, yeah. But you had something else that you wanted to maybe kind of close with.
I do.
Let's go ahead and maybe have you share with that. And then,
your folks don't know that I used to be an English teacher, and so I like poetry. And a number of years ago, I read this. It's the simplest poem, written by Jane Kenyon is her name. When she wrote this, she had cancer, did not know how long she would have to live. And here's the poem. And don't be fooled by its simplicity, because it gets right to the heart of how we should live today. I got out of bed on 2 strong legs. It might have been otherwise. I ate cereal, sweet milk, ripe, flawless peach. It might have been otherwise. I took the dog uphill to the birch wood. All morning I did the work I love. At noon I lay down with my mate. It might have been otherwise. We ate dinner together at a table with silver candlesticks. It might have been otherwise. I slept in a bed in a room with paintings on the walls and planned another day, just like this day. But one day, I know it will be otherwise. So we live this day, not knowing whether we have tomorrow. And we do in this day, on this day, what brings us joy. I have 3 last things I want to say.
Okay.
I would like to encourage everybody to plan their tombstone. What would you like on your tombstone? I have a friend, Gene Carter's his name, and he wanted on his, and he said this in a national convention. He said, I want my tombstone to read, "You could count on him." Boy, isn't that good?
That's very good, yeah.
Then there was this anonymous one that said, "I told you I was sick." All about me.
Right.
Mine, I want to have the words that are not original with me, but were attributed to a mountain climber. His said, "Died climbing."
Oh, wow.
I want to die climbing.
Wow.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. And we want to make sure we're all living well. And thank you again, Roy. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.